Imagine an existence where no external shock, no person, no situation can disrupt your inner equilibrium. Does it seem like a utopia? However, this is not an unattainable dream reserved only for the chosen few. It is a very tangible reality accessible to everyone. Perhaps the search for peace has not been conducted where it should have been. It is widely believed that peace comes with achievements, recognition, or the absence of suffering. But true peace is much closer than it seems, although it may go unnoticed. The absence of inner peace and being in a cycle of uncontrolled thoughts, all-consuming emotions, and an inexplicable feeling of emptiness is a state that many mistakenly take for normal. There is a widespread belief that peace is a privilege available only to a few, while the rest are destined for eternal inner struggle. But this is a delusion. Inner peace is not an unattainable illusion and does not imply an ideal existence without conflicts. It is determined by how a person perceives the world around them, since reality, however immutable it may seem, is a reflection of the internal state. Just remember how two people can experience the same event, but one comes out of it broken and the other unperturbed. What is the reason for this difference? Our emotional state is determined not so much by the events themselves, but by our personal interpretation of these events. The human mind is like a complex filter, formed under the influence of many years of beliefs, experienced traumas, and unconscious patterns of behavior. As Carl Jung once insightfully noted, until a person becomes aware of the content of their unconscious, it will steadily direct their life, and the person will mistakenly take it for a predetermined fate. In essence, each of us is a hostage of our own mental programming. From early childhood, we absorb ideas, fears, and stereotypical reactions that we mistakenly take for our own. However, in reality, these attitudes were imposed on us by parents, society, and life experiences that had a formative impact on our personality. Every time we react impulsively without thinking, every time fear, anger, or sadness take over us, it indicates not our true essence, but the manifestation of an internal wounded child who still has a significant impact on our lives. A logical question arises: how long are we going to allow this wounded child to control our lives? Unfortunately, most people never ask this question, preferring to live in automatic mode, repeating the same destructive patterns of behavior over and over again, making the same mistakes and experiencing the same enduring pain. The reason for this lies in the fact that they tend to perceive life as a chaotic sequence of uncontrolled events. As long as they adhere to this erroneous point of view, they will be doomed to remain in a mental trap. True freedom lies not in striving to control external circumstances, but in the ability to manage your reactions to what is happening. This does not mean suppressing emotions or obsessively trying to drown out your thoughts, but rather involves consciously observing them, not allowing them to define our personality. After all, a person is not their mind and not that inner voice that constantly torments them. A person is the one who is able to listen, observe, the consciousness behind all this mental noise. However, in the hustle and bustle of life, we often forget about this fundamental fact. As long as we continue to believe that we are every fleeting thought that flashes through our mind, we will remain at the mercy of chaos and confusion. The real key to emotional stability is not in suppressing negative experiences, but in stopping the fruitless struggle with them. Resistance only fuels their energy, while acceptance deprives them of power over the individual. You can imagine the mind as a river. Trying to stop its flow will lead to exhaustion, but the ability to swim with the current will allow you to realize that a person is not the water itself, but an observer on the shore. This is where the real power lies. Inner peace is achieved not through the creation of ideal external conditions, but through the development of the ability to withstand external influences. To do this, it is necessary to practice mindfulness, that is, to live in the present moment, not immersing yourself in the experiences of the past or the fears of the future. It is the current moment that is the only reality. The mind, striving to lure into the world of doubts, memories, and fictional scenarios, should not be perceived as the defining identity. If you learn to see it only as a tool, you can gain true freedom. Emotional freedom is the only freedom that has enduring value. The ancient Stoics argued, not the events themselves, but the reaction to them determines the path of life. That's the difference between suffering and peace, between playing the victim and taking control of the situation. A deep understanding of this concept allows us to realize that no one and nothing can steal inner peace. It's not in the external world, but originates within. All that's needed is to assert your rights to it. It's up to each person to decide whether to let the hustle and bustle of the world around them define their inner balance or take the reins themselves. It's important to realize that true peace is not just the ability to perceive reality, but the acquisition of power, not over others, but over oneself. This is where most people fail. Everyone strives for peace, but only a few are willing to make the effort required to achieve it. The main enemy of inner peace is distraction. This isn't just about social media and external stimuli, but also about internal distraction, the inability to be alone with oneself, the obsessive need to fill every minute with stimuli because silence is frightening. In silence, a person's true face is revealed, their essence, what they have been avoiding, and the fears they carry within them. Most are unwilling to face them, preferring to distract themselves with noise, bustle, and constant activity, because when the world goes quiet, their inner demons begin to speak, which becomes unbearable. However, the secret to finding true peace lies in facing this silence, not running away from it or muffling it. Inner peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to remain calm in the eye of the storm. This becomes possible only when a person finds the courage to look inside themselves without fear. The problem is that modern society does not encourage introspection. Everything around is designed to distract: consumerism, the need for approval, the obsession with constant busyness. These are traps designed to keep a person in a state of hibernation. After all, if they never stop to reflect on themselves, they will never discover their true strength. In this life drama, the power of detachment plays a key role, often underestimated by many. To achieve unwavering inner peace, it's necessary to learn to let go not only of past grievances and emotional wounds, but also of the obsessive desire to control everything around. This desire is the root of suffering. In resisting the inevitable, you just need to look around to see how many people are engaged in an endless struggle with the surrounding reality. They strive to change the world according to their own preferences, expect certain behaviors from others, and want everything to conform to their personal ideas. And when reality doesn't live up to their expectations, they experience suffering, anger, and sadness. But reality is indifferent to their desires, so it's pointless to engage in conflict with it. The main principle is to accept what is beyond control and focus efforts on what is within the sphere of personal influence. Perception, reaction, internal state. That's where true power lies. Everything else is just distracting noise. By freeing themselves from the need for control, people cease to be victims of circumstances and gain true freedom. However, letting go of control is not an easy task, requiring a radical revision of one's outlook on life. It's necessary to realize that attachment to external factors, people, opinions, results, are chains that people put on themselves. As long as they are connected to the external world, inner peace remains unattainable. They will always be subject to the influence of external events and circumstances. Is a person ready to let go of the situation? Are they ready to give up the false sense of control and accept reality as it is? It's important to understand that this decision must be made not only during the viewing of this material, but also after its completion, as this is the only path to true freedom. Everything is interconnected: inner peace, the ability to detach from problems, and an adequate perception of reality. All these elements lead to one simple truth: life is like a mirror. It reflects the essence of a person, not their desires. If there is chaos in a person's soul, they will see chaos around them. If there is peace in a person's soul, nothing can shake it. The main question is not about finding peace, but about being ready to stop resisting the flow of life and start living in harmony with it. When a person reaches this state, they realize an amazing thing. The peace they have been searching for in the external world has always been within them. They just needed to remove the obstacles that prevented it from manifesting. The true test of inner peace is not in serenity, but in the ability to maintain it during a storm. In calm times, everyone can feel at peace, but true peace is what a person can maintain when everything around them is falling apart. This is where most people fail. They mistakenly believe that peace comes with establishing relationships, achieving goals, and increasing income. They naively believe that when the external world aligns with their desires, they will finally find peace. But this is a profound misconception, because as long as inner peace depends on external factors, it will never be genuine. It will always be something the world can take away. This is where the ability to cope with life's difficulties comes to the forefront. It's not just about enduring pain, but about transforming it into personal growth. It's the ability to use even the darkest moments to become stronger, wiser, and freer. Look at those who have achieved imperturbable peace of mind. What do these people have in common? As a rule, their life path was not strewn with roses. They faced bitter trials, heartache, and difficult challenges. However, instead of allowing these hardships to break them, they used them as an incentive for personal growth and self-improvement. This is the fundamental difference between sinking under the burden of problems and soaring above them. Which path do you choose? Remember that true peace is not achieved by avoiding suffering, since it is impossible to avoid problems altogether. Life itself will inevitably make you suffer. Pain is an integral part of human existence, but suffering is a personal choice. The key difference lies in how you interpret that pain. When something hurts you, you have two possible paths: allow that negative experience to define your personality and future, or use it as a springboard for further development. Unfortunately, most people are trapped in pain, resentment, and disappointment. But those who possess wisdom and understanding of life know how to transform pain into fuel, using it for their growth and transformation into a person who cannot be broken by any difficulties. Pay attention to the wise lessons of nature. The forest needs fire to renew and regenerate. Coal needs tremendous pressure to turn into a sparkling diamond. And you are no different from them. What causes you acute pain today may make you much stronger tomorrow if you can see it in the right light. Ask yourself the right question: how can I use this situation for my growth and development? What does this pain teach me? And here comes the most important and powerful moment, to which, unfortunately, most people are completely unprepared. When you start looking at life from this angle, everything changes. Overcoming the fear of pain and accepting the inevitable become possible when a person realizes the ability to transform any circumstances into valuable experience. Gaining genuine peace of mind comes when the fear of loss disappears and confidence appears in the ability to find support, even in the most difficult times. However, there is a serious obstacle to achieving this goal: attachment to one's own identity. Society imposes certain ideas about oneself on the individual, claiming that the past, life experience, and labels are the determining factors of one's personality. This creates a kind of psychological prison, since the belief that a person is their history makes them cling to past grievances, traumas, and outdated beliefs. The fear of the question, "Who am I without all this?" becomes the reason why many people continue to repeat the same destructive patterns of behavior, even realizing their negative consequences. The ego prefers the familiar, even if that familiarity is associated with suffering. But the truth is that to achieve unwavering peace, one must be prepared for a kind of psychological death. This means abandoning the version of yourself that is mired in the past, abandoning the story that you tell yourself about who you are, and being open to the possibility of becoming someone new. This process can be frightening, as the ego resists uncertainty. However, it is in this uncertainty that freedom lies. Abandoning a fixed identity allows a person to stop reacting to events automatically, freeing themselves from fears, stereotypes, and limitations. They become flexible, adaptable, and unwavering, This is the real revolution, not the desire to control life, but the ability to go with the flow without losing oneself. After all, life is not a struggle for victory, but a river in which you need to be able to swim. Is a person ready to free themselves from the shackles of the past, to let go of the story that holds them captive? Are they able to rethink pain, turning it from an enemy into a valuable tool for self-knowledge? After all, this is the key difference between an existence full of torment and a life filled with peace. Ultimately, only one question truly matters. Will the individual continue to flee from themselves, or will they finally dare to face what is hidden within and reclaim the power that has always been theirs? This is the essence of the spark of greatness that should be carried through life. Genuine peace arises from an unwavering confidence in one's ability to cope with any trials that fate may have in store. It is necessary to relinquish the need for guarantees and the attachment to the idea that everything should happen according to personal expectations. Instead, one should cultivate an inner conviction that no matter what, there will always be a way to maintain balance and move forward. However, on the path to this goal, there is a significant obstacle: fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of the unknown, which is born from the stories that one tells oneself about possible negative consequences. It is the mind that creates problems where none truly exist. But once uncertainty is embraced, everything changes dramatically. After all, uncertainty is not an enemy, but fertile ground in which new opportunities are born. Just recall the most vivid and beautiful moments of life. How many of them were carefully planned? Virtually none. The deepest experiences, the most valuable lessons, and the most significant changes occur unexpectedly, as gifts of unpredictable fate. One stands before a choice: to stubbornly cling to illusory control, or to learn to go with the flow of life, casting aside fears. True peace is found not in striving to control every detail, but in trusting one's ability to adapt to changing circumstances. On the path to this goal, a final but important obstacle arises, requiring resolution. Self-confidence does not arise instantaneously, and here the internal dialogue plays a key role. What is the point of accepting uncertainty if one's own mind becomes the worst enemy? How can one find inner peace if every thought is directed against oneself? Many underestimate the influence of the inner voice, not realizing that the words addressed to oneself shape reality. If the internal dialogue is filled with criticism, doubts, and negativity, one is doomed to an eternal war with themselves. The solution lies in changing the way one communicates with oneself. If every mistake is perceived as a verdict on self-worth, peace will remain unattainable. If every failure is followed by punishment instead of learning lessons, freedom will never come. If every negative thought is taken as absolute truth without question, one remains trapped. The inner voice is not the ultimate truth, but merely an echo of beliefs, past experiences, and fears. However, it can be changed, reprogrammed, and directed to serve oneself, not against oneself. When this happens, true life begins, for true peace is not simply the absence of external conflicts, but the ability to live in harmony with one's thoughts. Peace is not something to be found, but something that is built daily, thought by thought, choice by choice. It is the result of what one allows into their mind, what one rejects, and how one interprets events. People often seek answers in the external world, not realizing that they have always been within them. They wait for changes in life, while the only change that matters is internal transformation. In reality, one should not count on anyone else's salvation. The ability to find inner balance is always within one's personal control. The difference between those who experience suffering and those who find peace lies not in luck or external circumstances, but in their attitude toward the resources available to them, in the interpretation of life experiences, and in beliefs about themselves. Therefore, the key question is not whether peace is attainable, but whether one is willing to take the necessary steps. Inner peace requires active effort, self-analysis, saying goodbye to the past, accepting the present, and overcoming the fear of the future. Many prefer to remain in their familiar comfort zone, even if it involves internal conflict. However, If the reader has reached this point, they probably realize that there is another way. True freedom is not in the external world, but within oneself. The task is to stop allowing external factors to determine one's emotional state and to learn to control one's reactions. Starting from this moment, step by step, one can begin to change. Each time one chooses to relinquish attachments, questions their reactions, observes instead of identifying, they strengthen the inner peace they have always sought. Moreover, there is no need to postpone the start of this process. One can begin right now by making the appropriate commitments. It's important to state this publicly to increase accountability. You can write in the comments, "I can," uniting with others and rising with our heads held high, ready for the new challenges that life has in store. It's important to remember that Buddhism teaches every trial that life puts before you, you can overcome, because life never puts insurmountable obstacles before us, only trials that we can endure and overcome.